Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the She Knows Pro Football Podcast. Once again, I'm Alice, aka the NFL Girl. As the last week of the offseason begins before the start of training camp next week, a few things have been happening as players and teams prepare for the start of the 2019 season. With that said, we're going to talk about the Carolina Panthers, Quin, Kendrick Norton, Ryan Smith, Clint Boling, Derrick Morgan, Robert Ayers, Kamrin, Richie Incognito, Herndon, Robbie Gould, Grady Jarrett, Rock Thomas, Jonathan Cooper, Alex Collins, Martavis Bryant, and Gregory. So let's start with the Carolina Panthers. Amazon Studios' All or Nothing is back for its fourth season and is featuring another new team. Last Wednesday, the streaming service announced that they would be featuring the 2018 Carolina Panthers for this year's documentary series. All or Nothing is different than HBO's Hard Knocks in that it follows a team through an entire NFL season instead of just through training camp. The 8-part series follows the highs and lows of wins and losses both on and off the field and shows the lives of players and coaches as they try to navigate through everyday life during an NFL season. The new season will premiere July 19th on Amazon Prime Video. After 10 seasons in the NFL, safety Quin has decided to call it a career. On Tuesday, the 33-year-old took to his Instagram to announce his retirement from the league. Quin was drafted by the Houston Texans out of New Mexico in 2009. He would spend 4 years with the Texans before signing with the Lions in 2013. Quin would make a big impact with the Lions, starting in 148 consecutive games and racking up the second most tackles for a safety in the team's history. Lions released him this offseason, and Quin chose to retire rather than pursue an opportunity with the new team. In his 10-year NFL career, the 5'11", 207-pound defensive back amassed 737 tackles, 4 sacks, 85 pass deflections, 24 interceptions, 10 forced fumbles, and 2 defensive touchdowns. Kendrick Norton received a bit of uplifting news this week. After an accident last week required the amputation of his left arm and ended his NFL career, the 22-year-old's management team launched a GoFundMe campaign to cover his medical expenses. Last Tuesday, the fundraiser was updated to inform contributors that the NFL had reached out and advised them that the league would cover the young talent's medical expenses. Donations would now cover his daily living expenses since he no longer can play in the league. The Miami Dolphins have the option to keep Norton on their non-football injury list, which would allow him to collect his $495,000 salary for the 2019 season and remain on the league's health insurance plan. The team has not spoken about their decision on this yet. Norton took to his Instagram this Tuesday to thank his well-wishers and update people on his health. He is set to undergo a 6th surgery this week. Tampa Bay Buccaneers cornerback Ryan Smith will begin the first quarter of the NFL season away from the team. Last Wednesday, the NFL announced the 25-year-old had been suspended for the first 4 games of the 2019 season for violation of the league's policy on performance-enhancing drugs. Smith has started 16 games over the last 2 seasons for the Bucs and amassed 101 tackles, 3 forced fumbles, 10 pass deflections, and 1 interception. Buccaneers general manager Jason Licht released a statement shortly after the announcement, stating the team was disappointed that Ryan will be unavailable for the first 4 games of the season and that the team does extensive training and education for their players regarding the league's policies, but ultimately each individual is responsible for what they put in their bodies. The 6-foot, 190-pound defensive back can practice and play during training camp and preseason, but won't be available to hit the field until Week 5 against the Saints. Clint Boling has decided to end his career in football. On Monday, the Cincinnati Bengals guard announced his retirement from the NFL through the team's website. A highly touted prospect coming out of Georgia, Boling was drafted by the Bengals in the 4th round in 2011 and spent his entire 8-year NFL career with the team. In that time, he played in 111 games, starting in all but 2. Derrick Morgan is permanently hanging up his cleats. On Monday, the 30-year-old announced his retirement from the NFL. The 6'4", 261-pound linebacker was a ferocious tackler coming out of Georgia Tech and was drafted number 16 overall in the first round by the Tennessee Titans. Morgan would go on to spend his entire 9-year career with the team. He was released this offseason before announcing his retirement. In his 9-year NFL career, Morgan amassed 305 tackles, 44.5 sacks, 26 pass deflections, 5 forced fumbles, and 4 fumble recoveries. Robert Ayers has decided to call it a career. On Tuesday, Ayers took to his Twitter to announce his retirement from the NFL. The 33-year-old defensive end last played for the Buccaneers in 2017 before being released that offseason. He was signed by the Lions before the start of the 2018 season, but was released the next day. Ayers was drafted out of the University of Tennessee in the first round by the Denver Broncos in 2009. He would spend 4 years with the Broncos before signing a 2-year deal with the Giants in 2014. The 6'3", 275-pound veteran spent the last 3 seasons with the Buccaneers. In his 10-year NFL career, Ayers played in 120 games and amassed 257 tackles, 35 sacks, 14 pass deflections, 8 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries, and 1 defensive touchdown. Giants safety Kamrin Moore is facing legal issues that may cost him a chance at earning a spot with the team this season. On Monday, the team announced the 22-year-old had been suspended by the team pending the outcome of a police investigation. Moore was arrested over the weekend for third-degree aggravated assault after punching a woman and knocking her unconscious and stepping on her neck. Moore and the victim had been dating since January. The young defensive back was originally drafted in the 6th round in 2018 by the Saints, but failed to make the final cut. He was waived and later picked up by the Giants in September and would go on to play in just 2 games for the team. The results of the investigation may end up costing the talented secondary player his shot in the NFL. Raiders guard Richie Incognito will be starting the 2019 season away from the team. On Friday, the NFL announced a 2-game suspension for the 36-year-old for violation of the league's personal conduct policy. The suspension comes as a result of an arrest last August for threats and disorderly conduct made at a Scottsdale, Arizona funeral home while the offensive lineman was making funeral arrangements for his late father. Raiders were aware that a suspension was looming before signing the veteran guard in May. Incognito last played in the league for the Bills in 2017. Chris Herndon will not be with the Jets when the 2019 season begins. On Friday, the NFL announced the suspension of the 23-year-old for violation of the league's substance abuse policy. The suspension comes as a result of a June 2018 car crash. Herndon pleaded guilty to driving while intoxicated in January. Herndon can practice and participate in training camp and through the preseason, but will not be available to play until October 7th. Tight end Daniel Brown will likely start for the Jets until Herndon's return from suspension. Running back Rock Thomas will not be with the Vikings for the start of the 2019 season. On Tuesday, the NFL announced the 23-year-old had been suspended for the first 3 games of the NFL season for violation of the league's substance abuse policy. The suspension is a result of a felony marijuana arrest for which he received probation. Thomas was found to be in possession of 143 grams of marijuana in his Mendota Heights home in January. Thomas was signed by the Vikings as an undrafted rookie in 2018. He made his debut for the team in Week 4 and amassed 8 carries for 30 yards and 2 receptions for 21 yards in his rookie season. Thomas will be available in Week 4 when the Vikings face the Bears in Chicago. Robbie Gould is staying in the Bay Area for the foreseeable future. On Monday, the 36-year-old kicker signed a 4-year, $19 million contract with the San Francisco 49ers, including a $3 million signing bonus, $10.5 million guaranteed, and an average annual salary of $4.75 million. Gould is locked in with the team until 2022. The veteran journeyman led the league in field goal percentage last season while completing 72 of 75 field goals over the last 2 seasons. Grady Jarrett will be in Atlanta for several more years. On Monday, Jarrett signed a 4-year, $68 million contract with the Atlanta Falcons, including $18 million signing bonus, $42.5 million guaranteed, and an average annual salary of $17 million. The 26-year-old defensive tackle was drafted in the 5th round by the Falcons in 2015 and has spent his entire 4-year NFL career with the team. In his 4-year NFL career, the 6-foot, 305-pound lineman has amassed 179 tackles, 14 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and 1 fumble recovery. The new deal with the Falcons makes Jarrett the highest paid defensive tackle in the league. Jonathan Cooper has a new home for 2019. On Monday, the Raiders announced the signing of the 29-year-old guard to a 1-year deal. The signing comes following the announcement that Richie Incognito had been suspended for the first 2 games of the season. Cooper was the 7th overall pick by the Cardinals in 2014, but has yet to live up to expectation. He has spent time with Washington, Dallas, Cleveland, and Arizona before signing with the Raiders this week. Alex Collins' hopes to get back on the field in 2019 have diminished. On Monday, Collins took to Instagram to announce he had suffered another setback to his return when he broke his leg 2 weeks ago and had undergone surgery to repair it. Collins was cut by the Ravens in March after he crashed his car into a tree outside the Ravens practice facility, and police recovered marijuana and a handgun from his vehicle. He admitted to police he had additional drugs and weapons at his home. Collins faces 4 charges, including felony drug possession with intent to distribute and use of a firearm during a drug trafficking crime. He is set to begin his trial on Monday. Collins was drafted by the Seahawks in the 5th round out of Arkansas in 2016. He would spend 1 year with the team, starting behind 3 other running backs before being waived in the offseason. He was picked up by the Ravens in September 2017 and signed to the practice squad before making the active roster a week later due to an injury to Danny Woodhead. Collins would go on to lead the Ravens in rushing yards with 973 yards and 6 rushing touchdowns. The veteran back would begin the 2018 season as the starter and go on to start 10 games and amass 411 rushing yards, 7 rushing touchdowns, along with 15 receptions for 105 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown. With potential jail time and a suspension by the league still pending, along with the injury that would keep him out for weeks, Collins' chances of making a 53-man roster this season are very unlikely. Martavis Bryant is looking to return to the league. On Monday, ESPN reported that the 27-year-old had applied for reinstatement to the NFL. Ian Rappaport stated that Bryant delayed his filing to further work on mental health issues and ADHD treatment. The veteran receiver was a 4th-round pick by the Steelers out of Clemson in 2014. He showed great potential in his rookie season, but would start his sophomore season suspended for the first 4 games for violation of the league's substance abuse policy. He would make an impact when he did return to the field, but was suspended again, this time for the entire 2016 season. 2017 would be a contentious year with Bryant briefly being demoted to practice squad and requesting a trade before finishing the season with 50 receptions for 603 receiving yards and 3 receiving touchdowns. He was traded in the 2018 offseason to the Raiders. He played in 8 games for Oakland before being placed on injured reserve and later suspended indefinitely by the league. With better management of his mental health, Bryant hopes to catch on with the team this season. Randy Gregory is looking to return to the league this season as well. On Tuesday, Ian Rappaport reported that Gregory had applied for reinstatement to the league. Gregory was suspended indefinitely in February for violation of the league's substance abuse policy. The 26-year-old defensive end was drafted in the 2nd round by the Cowboys in 2015 after falling out of the 1st round due to a failed drug test at the NFL Combine. He played in 11 games his rookie season due to an injury. He was suspended the first 4 games of his sophomore season for a failed drug test and received an additional 10-game suspension after a subsequent failed test. Gregory was able to play the final 2 games of the 2016 season before being suspended for the postseason and the entire 2017 season for another failed test. He was reinstated in July 2018 and would go on to play 14 games for the Cowboys that season. Despite being suspended indefinitely by the league in February for violating the league's substance abuse policy and the terms of his conditional reinstatement, Dallas extended Gregory's contract through the 2020 season in April, with hopes that he is now in control of his mental health issues. The Cowboys are hopeful for a return of the veteran end this season. Now look, I have previously spoken about the mental health issues with Randy Gregory and Martavis Bryant, as well as other players who have struggled to stay within the confines of what the NFL will allow them to take to handle their well-being. Each year, the league promises to explore the idea of medical marijuana to help players deal with chronic physical and emotional issues. Each year, the league fails to do so. Players like Gregory and Bryant, as well as Josh Gordon, know they will be suspended for violations of the league's substance abuse policy when they use marijuana to cope with their mental health. So the question must be asked again, why do they continue to do so? These are players who have openly admitted to having mental health disorders and know the debilitating effects that prescription medications can have on their ability to play at the highest level. They also know that some of these medications can lead to addiction and abuse. For these players to continue to use a substance banned by the league says something about their desire to be both mentally fit and physically capable to play at the highest level for 17 grueling weeks each year. For a league that pocketed $8.78 billion in national revenue last season, how can the health, safety, and well-being of their players continue to be a back burner issue? As the NFL pushes to expand to an 18-game season, isn't the bodies and minds of these players important enough to explore better options to keep their physical and mental health at optimum performance? Look, we face an opioid epidemic in this country. Keeping players from being a part of that statistic is just as important as the revenue the league would generate with an extended season. You can't ask someone to give more of themselves while continuing to ignore their demands for better treatment. Not just financially for their short-term playing career, but for their long-term health and welfare long after their playing days are over. The NFL commissioner receives $40 million a year, more than the highest paid quarterback in the league, and will continue to do so through the 2024 season. And he has already earned more than $200 million since becoming commissioner in 2006, while never once stepping on the field and risking a traumatic brain injury. Players deserve better, and with the capital the league generates on their backs, it is the right thing for the league to do. With the collective bargaining agreement set to expire in 2020 and Goodell pushing to get a new deal in place sooner rather than later, players need to demand more actions on alternative health treatments, including CBD, for both physical and mental health treatment, as well as more care after their careers are long completed. With the NFL and the NFLPA set to battle it out, the hope is players can finally become the long-term victors in this long and hard-fought battle. Well, that's all the time we have today. I want to thank everyone again for listening and spreading the word of the podcast. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at TheNFLGirl320. You can also read more of my thoughts on SheKnowsProFootball.com. Thanks for listening and see you back here next week.